Mommytrack Daddy Whispers Podcast is now called Birth Agni Podcast.
Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, I wish for your good health and the best of the stars for you and your family. Welcome to Mommytrack Daddy Whispers. Welcome to episode 9. My name is Divya, and we have started getting guests now. And our second guest is here today with us. Her name is Neha Misra. She is the CEO and the co founder of the Project. This initiative is aimed at bridging the gap in financial literacy in India. Neha is also very special because she started her journey as a young mother. She's broken the barriers of mind and the society. More so, she's a beautiful human being. I've had the pleasure to know her. Neha, welcome to our podcast. Glad to have you and could not be happier to see you after so many years. Neha, tell us about your journey.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mommytrack Daddy Whispers team, for having me here with you today. And thank you, Divya, for that kind introduction. I am the CEO and co founder of the Project. We provide financial literacy services to specially engineers across the country, and we even have some clients abroad. So I started my career as a techie. I was an engineer. I worked with TCS for about 5 years before transitioning into finance after pursuing my post graduation from IIT Madras. And finance happened to me actually by chance, but I grew to love it. I sort of fell in love with this. And a special point, I think, with respect to Mommytrack Daddy Whispers, I would like to mention is that I picked up post graduation after my son was born. So he was about a year old when I went for my post grad interview, and I still remember how scary it seemed at the time. But in all truth, kids grow up to be your biggest support and asset. Like, when it comes to finance, you talk about assets, and kids essentially become your biggest assets as they're getting older. So now my son is 6, and he's a huge support system. He's one of the reasons why I was able to go to New York and leave him behind. And he was the one who pushed me and said that, no, Mama, it's your time to sort of go and accomplish more things. And that's how, one thing led to the another. And, I ended up working in India as well as the US. But I really love what you guys are doing with Mommytrack Daddy Whispers and, trying to bring out the message to all those amazing mothers out there. And I'm so delighted to be on the show. Thank you, Divya.
Thank you, Neha. That was a beautiful intro. Tell us about your experience in New York. For your reference, Neha has worked with the long term stock exchange at Wall Street, New York. We would like to know your experience there.
Oh, it was phenomenal, I would say. After 5 years of being a mother, you sort of embrace yourself in the usual roles, like, doing all the household work, taking care of your children, looking after your family, those things become the norm. And somewhere, like, we've all grown up to be individuals who were pushed to study and achieve. And that's how the whole Indian education system sort of works. So even though I was happy, there was this part of me which was a little bit unaccomplished, because I got married slightly earlier. But as we sort of, got involved with being parents, setting up a family, you sort of, subconsciously take a backseat in your career. Nobody asks you to, but you sort of do it because, that's what keeps the family going. But over the last few years, a part of me was feeling unaccomplished. And that is when this opportunity to go to New York came, and I decided to grab it with all, open arms, I would say. And it was possible only because of the support from family. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were really, really supported. They offered to come here and stay with us and look after my husband and my son whilst I was gone. But if I were to say, how was my time in New York, it was phenomenal. Because after this whole long course of 5 years where you're just worried about packing tiffins and taking care of, kaun nahaya, kaun nahi nahaya, those kind of things, and all of a sudden you realize, "Arey, kitna time hai?" Matlab, you're all of a sudden there's so much time. You only have to worry about yourself dressing up and going to work. It was also important because I started valuing the Indian system a little bit more. Once I went there, the importance of having family and the bond that it sort of imbibes in our culture. I think that's the beauty of India. And my most wonderful moment, I would say, is for my final presentation. I decided to wear a sari, and it was stunning because walking up to Wall Street in a sari and people are just looking around to see how you're looking. But I think that was my pride moment. So I think it was wonderful all in all.
I believe you. When women go back to work after some time from their maternity, they actually realize, okay, this is freedom. Even if it's for some time, it's kind of it gives you wings that way. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So Neha, tell us what got you started with the Finlit project, and how important do you think financial planning is for parents?
So I believe that financial planning essentially in India starts only once we have children. Because जब तक अपना चल रहा होता है ना, तब तक nobody bothers कि अरे कहाँ जा रहे हैं पैसे. But once you have kids, that is when dynamics change and you start thinking that हमारी भी एक responsibility है towards people that you have got into the world. So with me, what happened was we essentially are based out of Vishakhapatnam. And when we moved to Vizag in 2017, there were not a lot of jobs here. So it happened more as a need. And that is when we realized that, okay, now my son is 3 years old. He was about 3 years old that time. And I said, okay, we have about 15 years till the time he's 18. And that time, what if he decides to say, ki, Mama, mujhe medical college padhne jana hai. So how much money would we need at that point in time? So it's important to start planning. So that is when the idea of understanding time value of money and these very basic concepts like power of compounding, how much should you save like month on month so that you have a lump sum corpus when your kids want to go to college or they want to pursue something that they like. And it's not an obligation, but they actually have the wings to do that. For me, it happened more as a chance. It happened because we studied these concepts and we overlooked them when we did MBA. But then once you sort of get into it, you realize ki nahi, it's important. You can have somebody do it, but it's important to understand those finances. So from that perspective, I was beginning to realize over the last 3 years the gap in financial literacy in India. Unfortunately, and it's important to highlight this because people don't understand, there's only about 25% adult Indians who are financially literate, which leaves this large majority of society which is not financially literate. And it's important to tell people कि it's okay. आपने किसी को दिया पैसा, they invested on your behalf, but do you know where that investment is going? So that is how the Finlit project had been in my mind for all these years. But once I came back from New York, I had accomplished what I wanted to, and I realized that it's time now to sort of give back to people what I learned in all these years. It's been fortunate to have support from IIM Bangalore because we are part of their Launchpad program. So that kind of cements your dream to say, no, this is not something that you are envisioning. This is actually a real problem. And, if you execute it well, then people will sort of benefit out of it. So that's how, the whole concept of the Finlit project came about.
Yeah, Neha, on the financial lines, we need to learn a lot as a society. So if I take my own example, when it was only after I was about to leave my job that I realized, okay, now I need to save a lot more than I was already saving. So it's now that I need to look out for avenues, look at the stocks, learn the words equity, market, how does different things work. And I can see that this project, how beneficial this is, because it actually hits at the root cause of the problem. So Neha, my next question to you will be, when exactly do you think parents should start thinking on the financial lines?
I think you're absolutely correct, Divya. In India, essentially, the education system thus far, I hope it will change with the new education policy, but has been so focused on academics that you fail to realize the practical side of it. So, you take up engineering, for instance. We all did engineering and we landed jobs, and all of a sudden, you're earning money. So it's not just about earning money, it's about knowing how much to save, for what horizon to save it. Again, that's very, very, very important aspect, is to understand what is your time frame that you're looking at, and on the basis of that only you can pick up instruments. So today in the market there's a plethora of instruments. There's, you talked about equity, there are things known as debt. There's concept of mutual funds, there's concept of bonds, there are newer age products like your gold, mini options, those kind of things are all there. But unless you understand the fundamentals, you're going to end up burning your fingers. That is the first, primary need to start understanding. Now, another aspect of it is when you should start is my point is essentially the sooner you can. So we only started financial planning when we were like, I was 28, my husband was 32, and we were just like, ab itna bacha lete. And then we were very happy because India mein na, this concept of savings is still there. Like, we still like think कि चलो 10% अपनी salary बचा लेते हैं. And we were very happy, अरे यार 10,000 बचा लिए इस महीने. And then you realize कि okay, 10,000 अगर compound हुआ 15 साल में तो ये कितना होगा. And then all of a sudden you realize this huge gap in thinking कि अरे हमने तो इतना सोचा था, and it's really not matching up. So then you sort of reverse engineer to understand, and you use this very simple formula in Excel called the future value. And you can sort of input कि मैं इतना बचा रही हूँ इतने period के लिए साल में इतनी बार, these many times a year, and that is where you sort of come to a value, and you understand. And for instance, we understood that if we wanted 1 crore rupees after 15 years, how much should we save per month? And it really hit me when we realized that we need to save about 40,000 per month. Now, traditionally Indians put a lot of money in LICs. And a very important point to understand is LIC is an insurance. If you're looking at it from an insurance perspective, brilliant. It's not an investment. So when we did calculations about LICs, and that's when we realized it's giving us somewhere around 2%. And that is not going to sort of fulfill the dreams that we have for our kids. We start only when we notice everybody else is doing it, everybody else is talking about blue chip funds. And I was like, after postgrad I did not know what is blue chip funds, and I've fortunately done postgrad from a decent institute, so ideally that you should know. But the point is, nobody talks about these things. So unless you make it a conversation that happens on the dining table, how will you inculcate these values in your kids? So that is the reason why new parents or parents who are just started to plan for their kids and plan to have kids, they should start as early as possible. Now that doesn't mean कि if you haven't started thus far bus nikal gayi. That doesn't mean. It's like start whenever you can, as soon as you can. Start with as little as you can. Not everybody can afford to save like 40,000 per month, because everybody's families goals are different, circumstances are different. तो हमारा तो concept is just that, ठीक है आपको खरीदना है आप खरीदिए, but उससे पहले आप समझ रहे हैं कि ये म्यूचुअल फंड क्या कर रहा है, that is what is important. So I think that's very, very helpful for the younger parents. I think you should start, because we had already lost 3 years of my investment planning years, if I were to say. But essentially just start as soon as you can. Start today if you can.
Yeah, I think on those lines, one of the very important points that you've put across is that how many of us actually think how much we want to save. We go ahead, we invest. We don't think that after 5 years, we want this amount. We don't start there and do reverse engineering, just like you said. So when you said that, it hit me somewhere. Okay, yeah, that needs to be done.
Yeah, so, just use that simple formula in Excel, and this is for all parents. Just do an equal to future value and FV, and it will tell you. It will tell you how much you need to save, and if you're saving in some instruments, how much is it actually giving you? So that's very important to know.
Yeah, and again, on those lines, I think Finlit Project is a great initiative, especially in India, where we still rely on a lot of traditional ways of investing, where we know even if it's going 2% down, still go ahead with it. I think that must be important somewhere down the line, but learning in this aspect is so important. And that brings me to another question, Neha, that in our families, growing up, we knew that the fathers in the family or the male counterparts are earning. Even if mothers were earning, it was their own saving. So it's the fathers who are going to save for us and for the family. So it always looked that far off. It was never something that was achievable. So it was something that was being done far off. So what do you have to say to that?
I think that's a very valid point, Divya, because traditionally in India, we've had very stereotypical gender roles. Like, a few mothers in our parents' generation had started to work, but still, like, the roles were very, very defined. However, today, today mothers are equally qualified. They understand, they've been working and they're willing to understand. That is the whole concept of it. With the whole financial literacy aspect, more than the financial capability and how much you can learn, it's simply about that attitude. And हमारे देश में mothers have that attitude, like inherently they know how to save, they know where to put that money. So if they could just be a little bit proactive, I think it would really change the dimensions. But yeah, I agree, because हम छोटे थे तो कोई बात ही नहीं करता था, and traditionally Indians buy plots, like, real estate is the traditional go-to investment. But I feel that, somewhere if parents talk about it, and both parents, I think, not just fathers, and it becomes like a healthy dinner table conversation about, how is the market doing today? Or what is going up? What is going down? Because that sort of brings it into the DNA of kids. And so, for instance, like I started at 28, and when I sort of imbibe these things to my son and tell him, no, it's important to sort of hold back on that choice that he wants, like, and he was really pressing to buy Mickey and the Roadster Racer, and it was a little plastic toy for like 2000 bucks. And I said to him, I said, maybe we can buy books worth it. Maybe we can do something else. But, do you really think you really want it? Because बच्चों के साथ again the challenge is ना, they play with something for probably half an hour. It doesn't matter वो कितने की है. But then if you tell them, there's a cost attached to it. We can't just close our eyes and go and buy everything. There's a cost, and then there's a reason also. Just explain. Because I feel kids by nature are very understanding. अगर आप उनको ना, when you talk to them, you would think that हमको लगता है कि बच्चे बेवकूफ है, अरे इन्हें कुछ मत बताओ. But it should be the other way around. You talk to them and you would notice, like, the phenomenal difference. And this is what we've seen in my son over the last 3-4 years. Like, he talks about those kind of things. Mama, what are you doing? Oh, you're investing. Acha, you're buying stocks. So it becomes a part of their very casual conversation. So which helps with the attitude. Like, there's no phobia around it. Whereas you talk about it, it's like a science only. You study it, there's mathematics involved. Just understand those dimensions, and the more comfortable you become with it, like, the easier it becomes to adapt. So I think that would definitely change as, mothers are becoming more and more proactive, and they're willing to stay at home, take care of their kids, and juggle all kinds of things at the same time. So it would definitely change in the years to come. But yeah, I do agree with what you said, traditionally how it's been.
So yeah, I totally agree with you, Neha, on that point, wherein you said that children should be talked to all about financial planning and stocks and maybe anything that parents are doing. It kind of brings in familiarity. एंड जब वो बड़े होंगे तो बाद में उन्हें ऐसा नहीं लगेगा कि अच्छा ये तो पता नहीं क्या होता है और ये तो शायद हम पता नहीं सीख पाएंगे या कोई कर रहा है तो उससे पूछ लेते हैं. तो दैट वेज आई थिंक इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू ब्रिंग children into those conversations wherein they can learn, pick up to their own understanding. And sometimes they would come back and say, okay, mama, you did not think about that, you're overspending here. So they always remind you things like that. So that brings me to my next question here. Do you think parents, they should start talking about financial planning to their children at a certain age?
Yeah, I think absolutely. We've grown up with this concept of having piggy banks. And I believe like 5 is the appropriate age. Maybe 4.5, 5 is when you just buy them a little gullak and tell them that, maybe start putting coins, and you would see the joy it brings them. The concept is not कि भाई आजकल चिल्लर की क्या value है. The concept is that they understand कि हाँ, it's important to sort of put away a portion of the money that, probably you save from the grocery shop.
Yeah.
So again, as they grow, you sort of familiarize them and just talk to them about events that are happening around you, maybe sit and watch Economic Times or Bloomberg with them, and you would be surprised how fast they pick up. And there have been times when, I've just been thinking about something and oh yeah, I really have to tell you about this one thing. And this I told my son very randomly one time that, maybe Bell is a stock that I need to study, and he forgot, and the next time we were introducing in while he was writing Bell Bell, and he said, is that a stock? And you would be surprised, and I said, oh no, Baba, that's not a stock, that's the different Bell. But and this is when probably I think Bell was what we were just analyzing it a few years ago. So you would be surprised how quick kids are. And I believe like up till 8 is the perfect time where they're picking up, they adapt to pick up languages. You teach them all sorts of languages, teach them coding, like just expose them to this myriad of ideas and see what they have to bring back to the table. But the more we are working with the blockchain client these days, and the more I talk to my son about this, and he's like, oh yeah, I know, like decentralized identity, I know, matlab mama talks about it. So it's
Yeah.
just कि the more it's talked about, अब क्या होता है कि अगर हम उसे jargonize कर देते हैं ना, SIP ये वो, and then
Mm.
people don't understand, तो मतलब क्या, तो then it becomes, it creates that fear. So
Yeah.
start at 5, slowly. Once they're hitting teenage and they really don't want to talk to you, they want to run away from you, don't nag them about the usual padhai. Maybe talk about these different off the topic concepts, like, hey, did you see what Raghuram Rajan said yesterday? And maybe like sort of entice them like that. And that's how the younger generation these days is growing up in this net savvy world with all sorts of gizmos
Absolutely. Yeah.
around. They'll pick it up fast. You would actually see that reaction from kids next time, and they sort of talk amongst themselves, and that is where you all kids talk to their friends these days, and then
Yeah.
you can notice ki acha, it made an
Mm.
impact. So yeah, talk to them.
Yeah, in that ways, I think the wisdom, it stays with children. It imbibes the kind of wisdom in them that will stay with them longer than we even imagine. So
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And it's not about like teaching them. And somebody like, very laughingly the other day we were doing a money exercise with somebody online on one of my web sessions, and this girl said to me, अरे यही सीख लेते हैं तो ट्रिग्नोमेट्री तो कहीं काम नहीं आ रही है ठीक है जबरदस्ती पाइथागोरस थ्योरम सीखा but that also has a significance. But then along with it, just teach them the practical aspect of it कि हाँ भाई compound interest सिखा रहे हैं, क्यों सिखा रहे हैं. This maybe that angle ki ha, this is the reason why you need to understand compound interest, and not just ki maths ke sawal which you want to run away from, but just make it a little bit friendly and equate it to real world examples, like what happened with Yes Bank, why did it happen with Yes Bank, and maybe just sort of decipher it like that. And then you will notice that it becomes like a very healthy conversation. It's not something that kids are getting ye kyun baat kar rahe?"
yeah.
like that. So
Yeah, and it
yeah.
becomes easier for them to function in the real world later on, because I've seen it really hard for me to be able to be a part of the real world because of all the things that were taught to me that should have been in the real world. I should have seen going to another aspect when I say that, but I think, yeah, it's very important to talk to children how things are there outside, how they're being applied. Because when it comes to the education system, like you already mentioned, it's all theory. It's all theory. They don't talk about how it's going to benefit you, or how it's not going to benefit you, because then the business becomes different. When they start telling you what's going to happen, it's going to impact business in the long run. So if we go to some jargons now, what would you like to say about stocks and exchange, and would you simplify it for us? And
Yeah, I think, again, investing in the market needs a little bit of skill. So don't do it without trying to understand where you're putting. Please don't sort of take tips which come to you on SMS, like, buy this, sell this. Never do that. But, if I were to just simplify what stock exchanges are, they're essentially a marketplace. Like, you want to go and buy something, somebody else wants to come and sell something. And it's sort of that place where you kind of bring buyers and sellers together. So example wise, you sort of equate it to an auction house. Say, supposing you wanted to go and bid for something. So bid in the market essentially translates to buying. So B for bid, B for buying, and selling essentially translates to ask. So I go and I want to bid on a certain item, and I say, hey, I'm willing to pay this much for it. Somebody else says that, all right, I'm willing to sort of sell it off for this. And that auction seller, or the auction organizer sort of puts his hammer down and says, oh, they match. So that is essentially what a stock market does. And how is it different? Because it has listed companies. These are companies which are validated by SEBI. And these are companies, and today you can invest in India, you can invest across the world. You have platforms which allow you to invest across the world. So supposing you want to probably, you like Amazon, you're fond of Amazon, and this is not a recommendation to buy Amazon, but maybe you want to say, Arey, it would be nice to sort of become a part owner in that company. So now you don't have all that money to sort of buy Amazon in whole. But maybe if you want to sort of expose yourself and you have that extra cash where maybe you say, hey, maybe I should start buying one stock and just buy one. I always tell people when you're starting out, never buy more than one. Now, similarly, if I were to talk about what are stocks, so these are it's interchangeably used with shares, equity, that translates to ownership in a particular company. Like I said before, you want a piece of Amazon, buy an Amazon stock. That's how it works. So again, but investing in the market depends on individual risk appetite. If you were to ensure diligence along with those investments, don't just put that money and go to sleep. It's your money. And that is the point that, I try to validate why you need to be financially literate is it's your money. Nobody will come and tell you ki, Arey, this company is going to go down the dogs. It could be a Franklin Templeton mutual fund, which sort of face that, hard crisis these days. But the point is, always start small. Understand that is the reason why, as adults, we don't want to study. We've done so much of studying all these years that we don't want to study. We don't have time. But again, it's important to be financially literate before you sort of throw yourself in the market with any instruments.
Yeah.
If you don't want to take any risks, please keep your money in a PPF account for 15 years. But if you have that kind of risk appetite, then sort of, even if you want that income tax exemption in ATC, just make sure that you're not picking that fund off that quick Google that you do. You did a Google, something came up because of search engine optimization, and you picked it up and you realize after 2 years, it's giving me negative returns. Just understand what that fund is doing. So that is where it's important, to understand the whole unjargonized aspect of it.
Yeah, when you say all that, it brings to me some memories wherein I read some newspaper and I saw, okay, 1, 2, 3, these are the mutual funds that are doing good. I invested in them and lost a chunk. So, similarly, like I already mentioned once, that we have people at our office place who are known, okay, these are the stock exchange market researchers and they have made enough money. He at 35 has a house and has a car, and he's been earning so much out of the same job that we have. So we all go to that person for advice and just go and put in our money. And I've done that. Often I would request you to emphasize on research, how important research becomes in all this.
Yeah, I think it's fundamentally very, very important in today's world with all this social media and everything. We only see the bright side of things. Nobody tells us ki itna khoya. They only say itna ban gaya. Matlab, that is what is important. Which brings me to that concept of, how fundamental research is. Because somebody who's giving you a tip, it could work once. It could work twice, your 10,000 could become 20, 20 could become 40. But then as you sort of start to have confidence in this person and it doesn't sort of fare well, पैसा ऐसी चीज होती है ना कि if it's not working in your favor, then you sort of start equating it to that person. But again, market में क्या होता है? Every novice investor who sort of made a few bucks thinks that I'm the king. But the market is more intelligent than you. So, and we are also getting a SEBI license whenever COVID stops, and we'll get that license hopefully. But the point is, only go to a SEBI registered investment advisor. Open SEBI's website. It gives you a list of people who are registered with them, and they are the people who have real authority. And what is more important from a research perspective, it's not just about the stocks. It's about your timing of entry. What price you are buying it. That is more important than the stock that you're buying it. Like, the stock, everybody, if you're eating biscuits and you think this is a good company to invest in, what price? So that price, nobody else will be able to tell until you do research. So that is the whole fundamental concept of financial literacy. We've done a beautiful post on it. I'm happy to share the link in your description to the podcast,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
that is what it sort of mirrors and sort of brings together how much risk that you want to take. And that only your research can tell, or maybe with the help of an investment advisor who is registered from SEBI. So it's very, very fundamental and very vital, I would say, to the whole concept of investments.
Yeah, that is really helpful. And I hope all the listeners that are listening to it right now would be able to actually understand that the money that goes out is actually our money. And it like you said, I'm deriving all this from what you just said, that it's the money that comes out of our pocket. It's according to our circumstances, it's according to our needs. So the research has to be according to what we want and how we want it to fare along the line. So that way, that kind of literacy is really needed. And I am a woman who's working. I'm a woman who's been out there in the world, but I know that I lack it somewhere down the line. And I know I've not started yet. I'm 30, 31, and I've not started yet. So I know how important it is for us and for women who are actually really good at saving money, and for them to understand that, okay, in this area, you can explore and you can actually multiply that money that you're saving. So it adds to your earning. It kind of becomes your earning. So that way, I think Finlit Project is doing a really great work, Neha. When we wrap this up, I would like to ask you, tell us about the role of consultancy and how Finlit Project looks at all this problem solving for a lot of women and men and parents out there. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that, Divya. We believe that it's important to enable your clients, not just handhold them. So it's important to build that financial attitude and financial behavior, which sort of precedes financial capability, which is what we do in our consulting, in our coaching. We sort of talk to clients, understand, make them understand that this could work for you, this could not work for you. But how we do it, we make finance simple and accessible. And it's about, like, first make them understand ki hota kya hai, versus, like, it could be a very simple thing, like, if you have invested in a mutual fund, is it a direct mutual fund or is it a regular mutual fund? Is it giving you the extra benefit that it is charging you for? Just understand first your own investments, like, just evaluate them. It's hard to find of take out that time because we're all working individuals, and that is where I feel like stay at home mothers who are sort of going with that phase where you're happy to be with your child, but then you feel ki matlab something else to do. Just start, pick up that Economic Times ka paper, or pick up that one page supplement that comes in Times of India. You would not believe how empowered, like, women feel on their own, like, when you tell them that this is what it implies. That, and when you start to sort of explain them these things, it really has this transitional effect. We also have a basic financial literacy program where we just tell them, clients, how you can understand your investments better. How do you break down the market? What is the market? What are bonds? Like, should you sort of look at a debt mutual fund, or maybe a bond is a better option? Like, just give them that knowledge. And it's just been so organic. We've only been up for about 3 months now, but you would not believe, like, every week that I wrap up, I just wrapped up a session for a bunch of lawyers, and somebody reached out to us again on their own, that it has a cascading effect because it impacts everyone. Which is where I feel, all you mothers out there, who have little ones and you're listening in, just pick up, just you have the qualification. We've all studied in Indian ICSE, CBSE boards. We've just grilled through those board papers. We have that capability. It is just about that attitude. So take out that time, and maybe when your husband comes home, rather than just standing at the door waiting for him and like waiting to hand him over the child and say, Ab tum sambhalo, maybe just talk to them about something different that you learned today. And you would not believe it has a beautiful effect on your relationship. Like, it could be with your spouse, it could be within the family. Because we as women, when we feel self empowered, it exudes in the kind of care that you give to your child. Because if you feel happy and you feel empowered, and that is how the kid will pick up from that. So maybe look at a different approach. And that's what the Finlit project sort of just changes that approach a little bit and sort of projects it in a way where people say, oh acha, ye to bada simple hai, like something like that. समझ गया है, तो बड़ा simple है. So start there. You can reach out to us. We have a financial literacy group where we break down one jargon every day. You can reach out to us, stay in touch, have a community, talk to your friends, maybe about this. Just talk about something beyond, which makes you feel accomplished.
Yeah, and I think for women out there, for men out there, bringing on that angle when one person in the family takes up something and when they start telling it to the whole family, it kind of accelerates and gives a direction to the thinking of the entire family. It kind of empowers the entire family. I'm a part of all those WhatsApp groups and all the community that there is. I'm learning along, and I hope the listeners give it a chance and just go with the flow. Start on your own, and when you feel that you need to actually now put in a chunk of money that gives you good returns and you need advice, you know where to go. And Neha, I've had a wonderful session with you. You've brought in some great points here, and I hope we can have another session, a more detailed one sometime soon. All the best for the license and everything. All the best to this project. I think it has a great future, and thank you for coming on Mommytrack Daddy Whispers. On that note, I'm deriving the parenting tip of the episode. The parenting tip of the episode is that talk to your children about things that are important. Talk to your children about things that you think will help them outside in the real world. You'll see an immense change in their attitude and the way they bring back things to you. And write to me your experience. You can contact me through my Instagram handle at @divya.kapoorofficial. You'll find my email ID there. You can write to me your stories. I'll be waiting and bringing to you another episode very soon. Till then, stay safe. Keep listening.